In March of 2014, Ellen DeGeneres hosted the Oscars, a movie awards show thing. During the show, Ellen took a now famous selfie with a bunch of other famous people in it, which may not have aged super well.
Bombastic side eye. Criminal offensive side eye. Do you understand?
Anyway, the selfie was famous because it got a lot of retweets on Twitter. And because Ellen took the selfie on a Samsung phone, Samsung promised to donate $1 to a charity of Ellen's choice every time the photo was retweeted. Ellen ended up donating $1.5 million from this to the Humane Society of the United States. And a lot of Inuit had a problem with this choice because the Humane Society of the United States, which is now known as the Humane World for Animals, is very against the seal hunt. And they are very loud about it.
My name is Rebecca Aldworth, and we're flying off the coast of Newfoundland towards the commercial seal hunt. A half an hour before dawn this morning, the slaughter started in earnest. 17 vessels have hailed out, and we're on our way to find them.
Baby harp seals stranded on melting ice floes, shot and left to bleed out.
And I'm going to get into everything I find wrong with this throughout the video. For some extra dramatic flair, here's the description that they have. Each spring, the Canadian government authorizes its commercial fishing industry to kill hundreds of thousands of baby seals. They are impaled on hooks, dragged across the ice, and cut open, and their pelts are often stockpiled in a warehouse. So right off the bat, I'm going to point out they keep talking about baby seals getting hunted when what we're clearly seeing on their video is a full-grown seal. Trigger warning for hunting imagery, I'll probably blur it. This is one example of misinformation in the video because hunting seal pups has been illegal in Canada since 1987. And if you're thinking, gee, if they're blatantly lying about that, then what else could they be misrepresenting in their seal hunting propaganda? And the answer is you would be amazed. Now, in this video by the Humane World for Animals, the lady, Rebecca Aldworth, gets in a helicopter and is all like, "We heard there were people murdering baby seals and we're on our way to find them." And I can't help but notice that she has a very Steven Seagal vibe in that she thinks she's really tough.
Do you still fight?
Yes, I do.
You still dangerous?
But then, actually... And getting back to these anti-seal hunt videos, which they seem to be mostly obsessed with the Newfoundland seal hunt, which is a different context than the seal hunting practiced by Inuit in the Arctic, i.e. the region of Inuit Newfoundland, which is the Inuit homeland that stretches across the northern part of Canada. If you'd like some more context about Inuit and Inuit Newfoundland, you can watch the intros to my previous videos about the sled dog slaughter and the high Arctic relocation. Now, the seal hunt practiced by Inuit is, for one thing, very important in the traditional sense. Seal has been an important source of food and clothing and tools for many Inuit since time immemorial. The image of an Inuit hunter standing motionless over a seal breathing hole with a spear is iconic. Here's a clip from the film epic The Fast Runner, which I've done a video analysis of. Meanwhile, Sauri is out seal hunting, and he's waiting over a seal breathing hole. So you see him bent over, he's looking closely at the water in the breathing hole and waiting for the seals to come up for air. And this is a really iconic pose for seal hunting, being bent over looking down at the hole. And you might be doing that for like hours, waiting on a seal. So this is why Sauri is mad when Oki comes stomping up, because any seals that were going to use that breathing hole would have been scared away by the footsteps by now. And seal hunting remains important today.
Tamanali Nriyunangatiaga.
One important film I'm using as a source for this video is a documentary called Angry Inuit. It was created by filmmaker Alethea Arnakuk-Baril, and I'm going to be referencing Angry Inuit a lot throughout this video. It tells a lot about the Inuit perspective on all the misinformation about the seal hunt that's out there. And you can watch the whole film for free on the National Film Board of Canada website. I'll link it below. Alethea also was recently a co-creator of the show North of North, which is a CBC original comedy series set in Iqaluit starring Anna Lamb. And the show was recently released on Netflix and renewed for a second season. I highly recommend it. It's excellent. You can also watch it on CBC Gem for free. And now please bear with me while I have a brief rant. So I made an almost 2-hour long video discussion of the first season of North of North, and I spent a lot of time on it and really tried to take a deep dive into the series and talk a lot about things like colonization, Banuk, Nuliayuk, the Inuit sea goddess, Inuit games, food security, etc. But unfortunately, when the series went live on Netflix, they immediately put a copyright claim on my video. So I sent in a very thoughtful response explaining why my video falls under fair use. But then Netflix rejected that and I got a copyright strike and my video was removed. So I appealed that and then YouTube rejected my appeal. So I'm pretty bummed about that, and it was kind of hard to get back into the swing of things and make another video.
Bluey, checklist. Oh, okay. Go. Apple cry. Check. Pick myself up. Check. Dust myself off. Check. And keep going. The show must go on.
But gotta keep on keeping on, so back to it I go. Oh, and so as not to waste some of the stuff that I talked about in my North of North video, I might be recycling some parts of it with the North of North footage removed or blurred because a lot of things are still applicable, such as a discussion on food security, for example. A freight came in with some goods for Nevy's store. Shipping stuff like food and fuel and other goods to Arctic communities can be really tricky, and I want to touch on that a bit. So stuff can either be brought in by ship, often for bulk loads of non-perishables, as well as air freight, which is for smaller loads of more time-sensitive cargo, like fresh produce and whatnot. And as you can imagine, stuff having to have gotten shipped in from so far away results in it being very expensive. Notably, food prices are a big issue in the Arctic, and this is a huge topic that I won't be spending enough time on in this video. A lot of people share food prices of different goods at Arctic grocery stores, and they are pretty mind-boggling. Over $7 for one can of soup, $33 for a bag of chips, $8 for a bag of tomatoes. And because food has to travel so far and often is not kept in the best of condition, so for example, fresh produce is sometimes freezing and unfreezing multiple times in the cargo hold of a plane by the time it reaches its destination, so it might have gotten bad by the time it goes on the shelves. And there aren't usually many alternatives in flying communities. So, for example, in the South, if a grocery store's produce wasn't good, we would just go to another store. But it's not really realistic to hop on a plane and travel to the next community just to check and see if their produce is better when you're in an Arctic community. So we see that the traditional food system is very important in Inuit communities. For subsistence, for one thing, because there are many issues with the market food system that people in the South don't experience. However, the Humane Society of the United States says it doesn't oppose the Inuit seal hunt. So what's the issue? The issue is that Inuit are a commercial people too. They aren't just, old-timey people completely removed from the global economy. And I can't help but think of this previous discussion from my Fast Runner video about Nunuk of the North. So this is a film that was released in 1922 and directed by Robert Flaherty. And Flaherty wasn't actually a filmmaker by trade before this, he was a mining specialist. It was filmed in Nunavik on the Ungava Peninsula in northern Quebec, and it claims to be a documentary of an Inuk named Nunuk and his family as they go about their lives. And the film didn't really permit much indigenous agency. Although the film depicts itself as an authentic look at the lives of Inuit, it was heavily manipulated to fit the narrative that the Europeans filming it wanted to give. I find the tagline of "a story of life and love in the actual Arctic" to be a bit ironic. So for example, the main character Nanook is depicted as a spear hunter, even though in reality the actor who played him had owned and used a rifle for years. And the actor's name wasn't Nanook, it was Alakarialak. Flaherty chose the name Nanook because it sounded more marketable for the film. And there's a scene where Nanook is shown a phonograph, and he doesn't know what it is, which I guess, fair enough. But then he picks it up and bites it, which, come on, really? Zacharias Canuck mentions this scene in particular as showing Inuit as primitive and childlike, and he says it partly inspired him to present a more authentic look at Inuit life without the stereotypes and the insults. And for context, this scene was entirely scripted anyway, and Alakarialak knew what a phonograph was. It's important to remember that Inuit are a modern people. They're a commercial people, and they have every right to participate in the global economy as everyone else. And globally, shitting on the seal hunt still affects Inuit even if you don't outright ban them from participating in it.
We also got a video comment from the International Fund for Animal Welfare. Have a listen to this.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Fink. I'm the Director of Canadian Wildlife Campaigns for the International Fund for Animal Welfare. IFA does not oppose subsistence hunting of seals by Inuit as a source of food. We recognize that food security is very important. Our campaigns are directed against the commercial slaughter of wildlife for international trade, whether it's elephants being killed for their tusks, rhinos for their horns, or seals for their skins. That is the sort of hunting that has shown to be unsustainable over the long term. Thanks for letting us make this clarification.
So, Alethea, several organizations talking about their clarifications, but what are your thoughts on this? And does that clarification really make a difference if in the minds of, let's say, those of us here in the state, we hear about seal hunting, we think bad?
Yeah, please notice she said IFA is not against Inuit subsistence hunting. What she fails to say, and she knows this, and all of these animal groups know this, is that although Inuit hunt primarily for food, we do also sell skins for commercial income. So there is a commercial aspect to the Inuit hunt, and we need to be able to sell those skins in order to continue hunting. And when you reduce the amount of hunting that's going on, that's less food on the table.
Unfortunately, the anti-sealers are still at it, and they're now pushing the European Union to pass a new ban that's even worse than the last one. It would reject all seal products, so that means all types of sealskin and even the meat and oil. I can't believe these headlines. Under the proposed ban, seal products would not be allowed into the 27-nation bloc. Inuit leaders from Canada and Greenland swiftly condemned the draft legislation, despite a special exemption for products from traditional Inuit sealers. I don't even know what they mean by traditional. Everywhere I look online right now, the anti-sealers keep pointing to this exemption, but they know very well that the 1983 ban also had an exemption for Inuit, and it did nothing to protect us.
So therefore, even if Inuit aren't technically banned from harvesting and selling seal furs, these loud voices spreading misinformation about the seal hunt tend to tank the demand and therefore prices of seal furs. Now back to Ellen. At one point on Ellen's website, apparently she stated that the seal hunt is one of the most atrocious and inhumane acts against animals allowed by any government. And I couldn't find a current link to this statement that is still up on Ellen's website, just a lot of news articles referencing it word for word, so I think she took it down. However, this Instagram post from 2018 is still up on her official Instagram page, which is reposting a PETA post about how India has banned seal fur, and they're celebrating that. Which, if you don't know, PETA is an alleged animal rights group. They're also super against the seal hunt, and they seem to talk about it a lot as well, just like the Humane World for Animals group. And PETA has also shown that they're okay with spreading blatant misinformation to fit their agenda. For example, here's an ad they have run in the past trying to be against wool and shearing sheep, which I don't know who the fuck let him near that sheep, but he's not doing it right. For context, here is an actual sheep being sheared. So all of this to say, Inuit were side-eyeing Ellen DeGeneres way back in 2014, long before everyone else was.
Bombastic side-eye.
And back when all of this happened, the hashtag sealfie was going around, with supporters of Inuit seal hunting sharing themselves wearing seal, and usually adding the Ellen DeGeneres show.
A young Inuk woman made a YouTube video and addressed it directly to Ellen, and it's getting some media attention, so check it out.
Ellen, my name is Gilla Inorak Stress. I own sealskin boots, and they are super cute, and I am proud to say that I own them. But I also eat seal meat more times than I can count. So when you said, let me quote, "Seal hunting is one of the most atrocious and inhumane acts against animals allowed by any government," personally, I was hurt. With the words that you use, suddenly a huge part of your fan base is targeting us as a people. It isn't fair.
On three, say sealfie. 1, 2, 3. Sealfie.
Inspired by Gilla's video, my friend Lakuluk and I were talking about what else we could do, and she suggested we make a play on the word selfie and post sealfies, pictures of ourselves wearing sealskin, or hunting or eating seals. It's a cheeky but positive way to bring awareness to the fact that Inuit are affected by anti-sealing campaigns. So we posted our own sealfies, we got in touch with local media, and put out a call for other Inuit to join us and use the hashtag sealfie. And Inuit are responding.
Now, let's go back to Angry Inuk. I want to share a clip where the reality of living in an Inuit community is laid out in the context of the seal hunt.
The '83 ban was a life-altering event for Inuit. I grew up in the aftermath. Suicide was once a rare thing in our communities, but as a result of the trauma from residential school abuse, forced relocations, and other destructive government policies, Inuit began taking their own lives at alarming rates in the 1970s. When the ban hit in '83, it was yet another layer of stress on our communities, causing widespread hunger and hardship. Within a year, our suicide rates spiked even higher and have been among the worst in the world ever since. To this day, we're still working to undo the damage. It took us 25 years to repair the reputation of sealskins and rebuild demand. Sealskin prices climbed back up to about $100 per skin, which is almost enough to make a living on. I grew up thinking the poverty and hunger I see around me every day is normal. To think this hard-earned recovery could actually relieve some of this hardship makes me so hopeful.
And also, here's another clip from my North of North video discussing a similar issue. Alethea Arnakuparil also produced a feature film called The Grizzlies, which came out in 2018, and it dealt with a lot of social issues experienced by youth in Arctic communities.
The three of us had done The Grizzlies together, which is a feature film, and that was a 10-year long process to get it made, and a really intense promotional period as well. From our perspective and from what we've seen has been, it's been dark, it's been traumatic, it's been often people from the outside looking in, and they're looking at the worst parts of our culture or of our of the issues that are going on in our community.
So in The Grizzlies, Anna Lamb plays the character of Winter, and Stacy and Alethea were also producers on the film. And The Grizzlies is actually set in Stacy's home community of Kugluktuk, Nunavut. The film is based on a true story, and it deals with the very heavy topic of youth suicide. Like many northern Inuit communities, Kugluktuk has a very high youth suicide rate. And Inuit in Canada have among the highest suicide rates in the world, and unfortunately this is primarily among youth. And I want to treat this topic with great care, while at the same time not making it a main focus of this video. I may talk more about this in depth in a future video, but a lot of risk factors for these high suicide rates stem essentially from the trauma inflicted by colonialism. Risk factors include depression, substance abuse, and knowing others who have made attempts or have committed suicide themselves. And The Grizzlies tells the story of the community starting a lacrosse team as a way to address suicide rates and how that kind of impacts the youth in the community. So obviously The Grizzlies is a film set in an Inuit community that tackles a very dark subject matter. And the other topic that I wanted to touch on before we get into North of North, that is also a big, heavy issue experienced in many Indigenous communities, is the topic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So The Grizzlies also starred Emerald McDonald as the character of Miranda. Emerald was also from the community of Kugluktuk, and she was Stacy Egluck McDonald's sister. And in 2021, Emerald McDonald was found murdered outside her community. Unfortunately, not only are Inuit communities more likely to experience higher rates of suicide, but Indigenous women in general are much more likely to experience violence than essentially any other demographic of people. Again, a lot of risk factors for this violence stem from the trauma caused by colonization. And again, I will likely make a more in-depth video discussing the topic of missing and murdered Indigenous women in the future, because it is worth a lot of careful discussion. I just don't want it to seem like I'm glossing over anything here, because I do want to rather briefly bring up these heavy subject matters to illustrate, the reality experienced by many Inuit communities before we get into talking about North of North. A tweet from the Grizzlies Twitter account states, "Our hearts go out to Emerald's family, friends, fans around the world, and to the whole community of Kugluktuk. It's hard to imagine the hilarious, energetic, sensitive, sharp, inimitable, and incomparable Emerald is gone." And here's another clip from my North of North video discussing how some of the characters in the show have been impacted by colonial trauma, specifically residential schools. Elisa P. is talking to Nevi in the church, and say what you like about Elisa P., she is a real one.
You know I don't like you.
I don't like you either.
But I see you.
And this is where we really get into discussing colonial trauma directly.
Did you know I went to residential school with your mom? Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't.
It's really hard to know how to be a mom when you never got to see yours. They taught us how to keep secrets, and they get heavier and heavier the longer you hold them.
Yeah.
I share mine with God. Who do you share yours with?
I have tangentially mentioned the impact of residential schools on other videos in this channel because they basically inflicted severe trauma on multiple generations of Indigenous peoples all across Turtle Island. The legacy of residential schools impacts everything. And there's a reason I haven't really delved into residential schools as a topic head on. Number one, at this point, everyone should know the basics of what residential schools were as well as their impact. And number two, if you don't know, there are tons of resources, documentaries, testimonies, books, etc. that tell these stories. And I'm not sure there would be much I could add to the discussion from a researcher standpoint. But either way, this scene gives us more insight into Nevi's background. Nevi's mother, who is CIA's grandmother, was a residential school survivor. She likely had some very traumatic experiences there, which in turn probably affected the way that she could be a mother herself, which would greatly impact Nevi. Intergenerational trauma is just what it sounds like. It's trauma that's passed down through generations. Colonial trauma caused by residential schools is widespread and forcibly separated multiple generations of Indigenous children from their families, their communities, their culture, their language, and their traditions. Many children also experience severe abuse of all forms at residential schools, and many children died. Survivors of residential schools returned home with all of this trauma and basically no support and healing from it. So even though residential schools closed a few decades ago, which is still very recent, the last school in Canada closed in 1996, their impact is still happening. Families are still healing from them. And all of this is to demonstrate the social issues experienced by many Inuit communities in the Arctic, to illustrate the impact of one of the only ways of participating in the global economy being decimated by this anti-seal hunting propaganda.
Anti-sealing campaigns focus almost entirely on the spring hunt around Newfoundland and the Gulf of St. Lawrence in southern Canada. They try to convince everyone that this hunt is cruel and inhumane, and that the problems with it are unfixable. They argue that the only way to address their concerns is to totally ban trade in sealskin. But regardless of how you feel about that hunt, most seal hunters in Canada and the world are actually Inuit. We hunt seals all around the Canadian Arctic, as well as Alaska, Greenland, and Russia. But animal groups make it sound like sealskins all come from that one spring hunt in the south of Canada. They call it the Canadian seal hunt, or even just the seal hunt, which completely fails to acknowledge that Inuit are an important part of the sealskin market.
And I'm going to talk about the Newfoundland hunt a little bit later on, but I think it's fair for Alethea to kind of just dismiss this southern Newfoundland hunt in her documentary. That's not really Inuit's problem that the rest of the world equates both seal hunts as the same thing. In Angry Inuk, we see a hunter selling sealskins to the Ministry of the Environment.
Lasalusi has been selling sealskins his whole life and is still one of the most active sealers in his community.
And he says he's going to use the money for gas.
Since our hunters live in tiny, remote communities and don't necessarily speak English, the government of Nunavut arranges for a wildlife officer in each community to buy skins from hunters throughout the year. Then, the government collects all the skins from all the communities and combines them for sale at international auction on the hunters' behalf. This is how Inuit take part in the global commercial sealskin market. This allows us to continue our traditions and take part in the modern world.
So this is an example of money generated from the commercial seal hunt literally going back into people's snowmobiles so that they can go out and hunt more, feeding their communities. And without this extra cash coming in, they don't have the resources to go out and subsistence hunt.
Anti-sealers have carefully developed the image of commercial sealing as a massive and evil operation, and they say it's inherently inhumane. But for us, This is what commercial sealing mostly looks like. I've seen many campaigns argue that sealing should end because it's not moral to kill a seal just for the fur. They say fur is shame and a frivolous luxury. But Inuit defy that argument because we eat the meat. And for us, a warm coat is not a luxury, it's necessary for day-to-day survival. When I look at sealskin, I see an ethical and sustainable economy that feeds people. Natural fur also keeps our hunters afloat if they fall through the ice, which is happening more often due to climate change. Once the sealskins are cleaned and dried, the last step is to clean off the oil residue by rubbing them on the snow.
And when the sealskin market went down due to anti-sealing protests, it really impacted a way of life. And there's a really great clip of a hunter calling out these animal rights activists, basically saying, like, can you come up here and say that to my face, please?
How could these groups work for so many decades to crush our industry without ever having seen it with their own eyes?
People are more than happy to yell about things when they don't have to look the people they are impacting in the eyes. Now back to the actual seal hunting. At the beginning of Angry Inuk, we see some footage from a hunt, although don't worry, we don't see anything too graphic. And to me, it showed the way that a skilled hunter can kill a seal quickly and humanely. The example we see in the film, the seal has a really clean headshot, and then boom, food for the community. We go on to see how when someone gets a seal, it's like a social event.
Mikidaktor ma biana ko tinno. Ugumina. Mana khat kujunga kai go be khaita. Kuja pingona kutsan na ko tinno. Yeah, okay, bye. Nakayun na problema ito tayo makailing. At doon yung apil na kumiano. Kung ba ang maksyon, ang manuna ka daw ko, kuyapik.
Pangutin mo na ka daw ang mamangit.
Gaya ka na, inaanguti kutsinaktok ko.
And I do want to point out, besides Inuit already knowing how to kill seal properly because they've been doing it for thousands of years, it's already the law through Canada's marine mammal regulations that seal hunting be done humanely. And they even have really specific stipulations if you're doing seal hunting at a close range, like where and how you can strike it, which might sound rather shocking when you see all those words laid out like that, but then, that's hunting. People have always done hunting, and people will always do hunting, and here's just the most humane way we can go about it. Now, I have no beef, no pun intended, with people who are vegan or vegetarian. I have vegan friends, you guys. No, for real, when I have people over and I know someone is vegan, I like making sure I make some good vegan things to eat. It's like a challenge because I don't usually cook vegan. Anyway, if you're vegan or vegetarian, that is your choice. And I think that it's reasonable to say that for Inuit living in the Arctic, that dietary choice simply is not feasible for many reasons.
That's them eating seal meat?
Yeah.
That's a proud Inuk photo.
Yeah. Their grandfather used to come home with the seal, and they would just like huskies dive right into the meat.
No kidding.
Everything was just
head first,
black.
apparently.
It would be scary in any other culture, but to us it's like very
so cute.
I love this clip because I think we all have a similar picture. For example, here is one where my face is covered not in seal blood, but rather the blood of my enemies. Just kidding, it's like berries or something. But both are pictures of kids eating something messy, and both are cute and iconic. Now, before I discuss more on the impact of anti-sealing propaganda on Inuit, I do want to delve a bit into the Newfoundland seal hunt, which seems to be the specific anti-seal hunting hunt that activists are obsessed with, so much so that they're disregarding or willfully ignoring the Inuit seal hunt. Newfoundland is a part of the Canadian province of Newfoundland and Labrador, and Newfoundland itself is an island on the east coast of Canada. And they've been doing a seal hunt in the region since basically when colonization began, like 500 years ago or so, they being the European fishermen and then later Canadian residents. And I don't know, maybe I'm a callous asshole, but I don't really see what the big deal is about this hunt, apart from the fact that seals are cute. So, for example, we see fishing on a wide scale too, but nobody gives a care in the same way as the seal hunt because fish aren't as cuddly. It's almost like these anti-sealing organizations are using the cute imagery of seals to their advantage, but we'll get into that. Now, in discussing the Newfoundland seal hunt, I want to give some background information about harp seals, which is the main species hunted there and also throughout Inuit Nunangat. Harp seals are not a species at risk, they are a species of least concern, meaning that their populations are not of concern to scientists. A 2024 article I found estimated their population to be about 4.7 million, which showed that it has been growing a fair amount. And again, maybe it's my background in the environmental sciences, where it's a bit easier to think about seal as a natural resource, with an indicator of concern being if that resource is being exploited or not. And with that mindset, no, the seal population is not being exploited, nor if federal regulations are being followed, is the harvest done in an inhumane way. Even the clips that these anti-sealing organizations show, the hunters are using what looks like a hakapeak, which is a hunting weapon specifically used for killing seal, and following the regulations of the specific way of hitting the seal on the head so it more or less dies instantaneously. Sure, it is brutal if you have a blanket ethical code against killing animals, But if you have a more nuanced view of where food and other resources come from, I'd say it's way more ethical than factory farming, for example, which is a real abomination and something I definitely try to avoid consuming from. So anyway, although there is an abundance of harp seal in the region, the seal hunt is still regulated by Fisheries and Oceans Canada, with a limit of 400,000 seals that can be harvested annually. However, due to anti-sealing regulations worldwide, hunters generally are only harvesting about 40,000 seal a year, so like a tenth of the limit. Also, I am a child, and I want to point out that the only current company purchasing seal products in Newfoundland is located in the town of Dildo.
Mom! Kitty's being a dildo!
Well, then I know a certain kitty who's sleeping with Mommy tonight.
What?
This lack of demand for seal is mainly due to the European Union banning seal products in 2009. Now, going back to Angry Inuk, one of the many great things in this documentary is that it was able to document this ban back in 2009. A group of Inuit, including Alethea, traveled to the European Union Parliament in Strasbourg, France, to make their case against the ban of seal products. For background, there had been a sealskin ban in effect already in the European Union since 1983, but this new proposed ban expanded its reach to all types of sealskin, as well as all seal meat and oil. Despite a special exemption for Inuit subsistence hunting, this would still devastate the sealskin market and plummet the demand and prices, which would impact Inuit livelihoods. The EU was set to vote on the matter, and the Inuit in attendance were attempting to sway the parliament members against the propaganda that they were being fed.
Upon their arrival, we're surprised to see giant anti-sealing campaigns there already. The International Fund for Animal Welfare have a humongous inflatable seal balloon, and the Humane Society International set up a jumbo TV with anti-sealing ads.
You're not in favor of a ban on seals. But in the legislation that we will vote at noon, there is an exception for Inuit people, so they can go on for their personal use with killing seals, and that is the only exception to preserve the people of the Inuit.
For me, the exception is of no use because once the commercial hunt goes down, once the price goes down, he won't be able to make any money off the seals on which he depends, on which he and his wife depends. So whether the exception is there or not, we are being affected without our will.
I will think about it.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.
And as you can see, most people voting on the issue were woefully uneducated on it. And the most infuriating thing is these anti-sealing activists handing out the baby seal dolls, which not only is an emotional appeal to Parliament, like look how cute they are, but we know that they're supposed to be baby seals because they have the white fur. Harp seal pups have white fur until they mature. And again, I will remind you that hunting seal pups has already been illegal in Canada since 1987.
Aaju and the hunters are handing out pamphlets, and standing right beside them are anti-sealing campaigners handing out little white baby seal dolls.
I'll get my granddaughter in America.
Oh, how lovely. It's been illegal to hunt whitecoats in Canada for 30 years now. But they keep using images of them, deliberately misleading the public. We now know they've been here for months, giving out thousands of these white dolls. These are huge organizations with so much money to spread misinformation. And here we are with no resources to fight it. As we wait for the parliamentarians to vote, we can see how few of them we've been able to reach. It's us versus the little white seal dolls, and we see a lot of dolls in the room.
Unfortunately, the vote was overwhelmingly in favor of the anti-seal hunting ban, and the ban passed. And I do want to bring up this cute seal pup imagery that we're seeing being used in this propaganda, because in Angry Inuk, Alethea uncovers some interesting information about a former member of Greenpeace.
This radio interview from 1978 popped up on YouTube, and in it, Paul Watson, a former Greenpeace leader, talks about why he left the organization. Listen to this.
Mr. Watson, how easy is it to raise money against the seal hunt?
The seal hunt has always turned a profit for the Greenpeace Foundation. And then other organizations like IFAW, API, Fund for Animals also make a profit off of the seal hunt.
You suggesting that they fight for seals rather than other animals because it's easy or easier to raise money that way, or because it's a profit maker for them?
Well, it's definitely because it's easier to make money and because it does make a profit, because there are over 1,000 animals on the endangered species list, and the seal isn't one of them. See, the thing is, the seal is very easy to exploit as an image. We have posters, we have buttons, we have shirts, all of which portray the head of a baby seal with tears coming out of its eyes. Baby seals are always crying because they're always, the salt tears keep their eyes from freezing. And because of that, coupled with the horror of a sealer hitting them over the head with a club, it's an image which just goes right to the heart of animal lovers all over North America. And now we have 12 people this year from Greenpeace California. I mean, they're coming from the highest standard of living region in North America. They're traveling to the place of the lowest income per year area on this continent, telling them not to kill seals because they're cute but non-endangered species.
That was over 30 years ago, when the Atlantic harp seal population was around 2 million. Today, it's nearly 8 million. But lots of campaigns still imply that seals are endangered to raise money. Like these ones from PETA, using the slogan, "Save the Seals." But nobody can argue that harp seals are endangered with any kind of honesty.
And then right when you have some semblance of respect for this guy for speaking out against Greenpeace's unethical practices.
I guess it was too hard to resist all that easy money, because shortly after that interview, Paul Watson started his own animal organization, the Sea Shepherd Society. He went right back to anti-sealing and is using the same misleading imagery to this day.
Baby seals have been the poster child for a lot of these types of organizations because seals are cute and they can tug at the heartstrings of the public to give their money towards the cause. And it also doesn't help when you get all these celebrity endorsements of the cause. And going back to what the hunter said in Angry Inuk, how he wanted these anti-sealing activists to come up to the Arctic and look him in the eye when they protested against seal hunting. We get a sense throughout the documentary about how most anti-sealing protesters are not willing to do that. For example, there was an international day of protest against seal hunting organized in Toronto. When Inuit heard about this, some people organized a counter-protest and traveled to Toronto from this purpose, from the Arctic.
Calling all Inuit, animal rights activists are planning to protest against seal hunting in Toronto on March 13th, 2013. If you are in Toronto or you're willing to come to Toronto, please come and join us, whether you're Inuk or just a supporter of Inuit hunting rights. We're going to go try to crash their protests with a little mini counter-protest, I guess. Or at least go and see if we can have a conversation with them. Because I'm curious, you know, I've never really met these anti-sealers face-to-face. And I have some questions I want to ask them, you know. Do they even think about Inuit sealing? Do they ever consider how we're affected by these protests?
Alethea also details all the different anti-sealing contacts at the different charity organizations that she's reached out to with no response.
Sealing rep is Cheryl Fink. I see her face and name a lot, and I've been trying to get a hold of her through their website contact form, but I've been getting no response. So it'll be really cool if I get to meet her in person at this protest.
Some Inuit students traveled from Ottawa to Toronto to attend the counter-protest and talk about their reasons for doing so in the documentary.
The same Inuit students that went to Europe saw my Facebook post, and the whole class is heading from Ottawa to Toronto on a bus.
I just wanted to remind you that we don't have to behave the way other protesters behave. Just be true to yourself. Remember how your parents and your grandparents would want you to behave. And we're there to remind Canadians that this does affect us. You know, often people misunderstand and think, oh, there are exemptions for Inuit and that we're not affected. But we need to remind Canadians that we are affected.
Busting our whole economy, where we'll be forced into mining our minerals because there's been like so much opposition from the Inuit side, and they know that they need our vote to be able to go up there. And like, if we don't have any sort of economy to support ourselves, we'll have to go into that.
And how, you might ask, did the anti-sealing protesters react to the Inuit counter-protesters? Well, we'll never know, because the protesters never fucking showed up once they heard that Inuit would be there.
The media requests about selfies keep coming, and today Aaju and I got an invitation from Al Jazeera, which is a big network that broadcasts around the world. They want us to speak with Rebecca Aldworth from the Humane Society on a live show, and she's actually agreed. This is my best shot so far at having a conversation with her. How much you want to bet she's going to talk about subsistence hunting?
There's also another incident where Alethea has an interview invitation from Al Jazeera to speak live with anti-sealing activist Rebecca Aldworth, whom you might remember as the badass helicopter lady going to rescue the baby seals from the evil seal hunters. How did Alethea's conversation go with this fearless helicopter woman, you might ask? Well, again, we'll never know because Rebecca cancelled too.
I was really excited to finally have a chance to talk to Rebecca Aldworth from the Humane Society. And unfortunately, last night she canceled. So here we are again, ready to have a conversation, and the other side is just not there.
Now, regardless of how you feel about the Newfoundland seal hunt, again, the anti-seal hunting propaganda is still very much impacting Inuit, even though the seal product bans are written to exempt them. Here is a clip outlining the impact of the 1983 ban. And another clip detailing the impact of the new 2009 ban a year after it had passed.
It's been about a year since the new ban was passed. Before the ban, Inuit were selling around 60,000 skins a year. Now we're selling less than half that number. And the prices for each skin fell from around $100 down to about $10. That's just the raw skins. There are also the losses on finished products made from seal skins, like mitts, boots, and coats.
And I want to highlight the work of Aaju Peter, who was a prominent part of Angry Inuk and is also an Inuit lawyer, activist, and sealskin clothes designer. She's also the subject of another documentary called Twice Colonized. And not only does she make really beautiful clothing out of sealskin.
With sealskin, my mother-in-law was always sewing, and I wanted to learn how to work with sealskin, and I was able to sell beautiful sealskin products, and it allowed me to stay home and raise my children from home. These are two different kinds of seal. This is harp seal and this is ring seal. This is the kind of coat I would want if I were a seal in the Arctic. Sealskin dyes really nicely. And I find the harp seal ones are just really classy because you can still see their spots at the bottom. So I took this part from here and the center part I took from the center, obviously, which is darker, and I turned it into a shawl. And it's very simple. I like simple designs. You want to see the big mitts?
Yes, I want to see everything.
The big mitts would also have the same idea, where you have the big sealskin, and then you could line it with the sheared beaver, kind of beaver here, to make it nice and...
But Aaju became a lawyer for the purposes of fighting injustices against Inuit.
Aaju's convinced a collective of Inuit organizations to launch 2 lawsuits to try to overturn the ban through EU courts.
I think when I was asked why I wanted to go to law school, one of my reasons was that, well, I would like to be able to explain the Western laws that are affecting Inuit way of life in a language that the elders can understand. It wasn't necessarily because I wanted to be a lawyer. I'm not a practicing lawyer, but I wanted to understand how come there's so much injustice in this world, and is there a way that we can change it? I didn't suddenly wake up and think, oh, I want to be an advocate and I want to be poor forever and just fight for Inuit rights. It didn't happen like that, but I think I had a very strong sense of what was right and wrong.
After the 2009 EU ban, Aaju met with lawyers in Ottawa to learn what actions Inuit could take. And in the years since the film's release, she's continued to be an activist against anti-seal hunting propaganda. I read this article by Aaju that really highlighted the hypocrisy of the seal ban, where she's talking about in 2009, right after the parliament vote to ban seal. Astonishingly, just after the vote, all 600 parliamentarians and our small Canadian delegation went downstairs to a large restaurant to eat lunch. On offer were rows and rows of meat from cows, chickens, and pigs. Little pictures of cows were proudly displayed on the veal. I was flabbergasted. I could not believe that all these politicians, after just voting to ban the import of seal meat and seal products into Europe, without any hesitation, stuffed themselves with all these animals that had been grown specifically to be slaughtered for their own consumption. So it seems like the EU has no problem with harvesting animals for food when it's done in the way that they're used to doing it. But the seal hunt is bad because seals are cute and we're not used to eating them anyway. And these anti-sealing organizations are still posting anti-sealing propaganda. One of the videos I showed from the Humane World for Animals was posted just in April of 2025. And I think they're suppressing any pushback on it because I left a comment on that video linking the Angry Inuk documentary and it got removed really quickly. The EU seal hunting ban is also still in effect. I took this screenshot from the European Commission website and they are still using imagery of a fucking seal pup in their media releases. Again, as I repeat, for the 3rd time in this video, hunting of seal pups has been banned in Canada since 1987. And they again talk about an exemption for traditional Inuit seal hunting, while not saying what this means.
Despite a special exemption for products from traditional Inuit sealers. I don't even know what they mean by traditional.
So in my opinion, allegedly, it seems like these anti-sealing organizations, 1, don't really care about the facts, or about seal for that matter, and 2, are simply using misinformation about the seal hunt because it's a very effective cause in gaining them prominence and making them money because baby seal pups are really cute, and 3, they don't give a shit about the impact of their actions on Inuit, and they know that they're in the wrong, which is why they won't show up to protests where Inuit are counter-protesting, and they won't respond or will bail out of interviews with Inuit, i.e., they won't look Inuit in the eye when they spread their propaganda. One thing you can do to support Inuit is to buy ethically harvested sealskin clothing and other products from Inuit artisans. Unicat Studios, the production company behind Angry Inuk, has an article detailing on how to do just that, and I will link it in the description. In that article, they also have links to various designers, and you can look for designers yourself with Google. I would just encourage you to make sure the artisan is Inuit, and then you can post a picture of yourself wearing seal, and then hashtag sealfie. Another thing you can do is to call out the anti-seal hunting misinformation wherever you can. Ellen doesn't quite have the same reach as she once did, but there are a lot of other out-of-touch celebrities speaking out against seal hunting, and Inuit could really use more help and more voices in educating people who are misinformed. So thanks for watching. I hope this video was informative, first and foremost. And I'm working on my next video as well, and it's going to be a little different. I've decided that the theme of my channel is decolonization, which helps me define the topics I want to talk about a little better. So my next video I'm working on will be talking about the Queen's Bush settlement, as well as the last stop on the Underground Railroad. And I'll be detailing some information that I only just recently learned myself about freedom seekers escaping slavery in the United States, only to encounter a more subtle, more Canadian version of racism across the border. And with that being said, I'll try and get that video out soon-ish, and I'll see you then. Everyone take care, and bye for now.